Welcome back to controversy in Premier League football now, where a number of clubs are reducing the salaries of non-playing staff, but not their big-name stars in wake of the coronavirus pandemic. The Professional Footballers Association has warned its players to speak to their union before accepting wage cuts. Now, they've been criticised by politicians for living in, quote, a moral vacuum. Well, the broadcaster and former England player, Gary Lineker, joins me now. Hi, Gary. So, I mean, it's not really a great look, is it, when Premiership stars on maybe 100 grand a week are not taking pay cuts when people are being laid off at football clubs, maybe?
Well, I think we're a bit premature on this first and foremost. It's only in the last couple of days that clubs have announced their particular measures. They were clubs' announcements, of course, not players' announcements, which is a key difference. So let's see what transpires over the next week or two. As we all know, we're kind of following the curves of Spain and Italy. And in those countries, in the last few days, we've seen players take voluntary cuts at the likes of Barcelona and Juventus through a couple of weeks ago. So I think we're kind of following in their path in all sorts of things. And I expect and hope and think it's right that footballers will try and do their bit as we all get together in these extraordinarily difficult times.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the point is what the fans will think. Many of fans will have lost jobs, taken pay cuts, certainly. Employers may be going bust, tough times for the self-employed. And these guys, they're seeing sort of still getting their millions.
Well, as I say, that's the case at present, but don't think for 1 minute this is not being discussed by players all around the country. They'll be fully well aware of this. They're very young men, teenagers, early 20s. They need a little bit of guidance on this. PFA, from my experience, don't always give the best guidance, but that remains to be seen. But I think it's very important that football does play its part in this. Football will suffer massively, of course, because football, without football, means economic disaster for a lot of clubs. Obviously, the giants will survive, but it's really worrying for those further down the leagues. But I'm sure the big stars at the big clubs are looking at this and looking to do the right thing. It's not something that they can just make a decision overnight. They have to have a degree of togetherness on this. I've got no inside information, and if in a week's time we're still in the same position, then I'll start to doubt it as well. But I honestly think that we will hear things from players, and I expect probably in the next few days, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, they do have WhatsApp groups. They're not training. I get your point, they're not training, but they do have WhatsApp groups, so they could, you know, organise something. But what sort of thing could emerge? Do you think there could be where some of the pay goes to lower league clubs that may be struggling to survive? What sort of thing could emerge, do you think?
Well, I think that's just why it's probably taken a little bit of time. I would imagine they're getting together. People say, yeah, it's difficult for them to all have meetings at the moment. Obviously, you talk about WhatsApp groups, etc. But from my experience at football clubs, of which I have quite a lot, you only have a few players that you actually get on with. The rest of them you don't. So it's probably not that easy. Also, they are looking at various ways probably of helping, whether it's the staff at the clubs, if the club are not doing that, which has only just been revealed, whether they help lower league clubs, lower league players, whether they just take a cut in wages, or whether they take their wages and then make donations into certain areas. There are all sorts of different possibilities that players can do, and I hope they do.
And you think, will it be individual initiatives, or do you think this could be a joint, some sort of Premier League initiative?
I don't know. I think it could be one or the other. I think it could just be players on an individual basis, or it could be togetherness of players at one club, and then another club will follow suit. I hope I'm right in feeling positive about what they'll do, but time will tell. But there are all sorts of avenues open to them.
But I mean, I suppose the problem is that with the delay or perceived delay, you know, you open up the opportunity for politicians. So the chair of the Culture, Media, Sport Committee, Julian Knight, says the situation is obscene, and he wants a windfall tax now on Premier League clubs that refuse to cut the salaries of stars while cutting salaries of other staff.
Yeah, is that the fellow that voted against banks paying tax, etc.? I think, and voted against people getting benefits that are, have disabilities, etc. But we know what
No, but he's making a fair
like.
point. He's making a fair point.
He's jumping on he's jumping on a bandwagon. Everyone wants to make that point immediately. But let's have a bit of patience, a little time, and give the players a chance to respond. This news only broke yesterday or the day before about Tottenham and one or two of the other clubs. It's very new, so the players would have to kind of deal with that. In a way, the clubs have thrown players a little bit under a PR bus, if you like. It's now up to the players how they respond. Let's give them a chance to respond before this hugely judgmental pile-on that we always get nowadays. And you know what? Footballers are always an easy target, obviously. But you know where are the? I hate whataboutery. But where are the big businessmen? Where are the CEOs of these enormous companies? What are they doing at the moment? Nobody ever seems to care about them, but footballers who do an unbelievable amount of good in the community generally that never gets reported on, who do lots of things for people who are doing lots of things to raise awareness during this dreadfully difficult time. So let's wait and see where they go.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, there are plenty of people.
I'll be the first to criticise them if they do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, but you're right, there are loads of people earning millions of pounds and, you know, in the city and running companies and people on telly. I mean, there are people doing that. You think more people should be, you know, putting their hand in their pocket right now, do you?
It's up to the individuals concerned. I'm not going to sit on my high horse, but I've done something. I think it was important. It felt like the right thing to do. What other people do is their business. But I think in these times of huge pylons and we're all massively judgmental, particularly on social media, before they've actually done anything wrong, no player that I've heard of yet has come out and said, well, there's no way I'm taking a pay cut. There's no way I'm not donating some of my money. None of them have done that. If they did that, then we'll have to talk about it. But at the moment, it seems a little bit premature to me to be hypercritical.
What have you done? Do you mind saying what you've done?
No, I looked at it. I've been looking at it for a few weeks now because you could see this tsunami coming, and I just felt that taking the full salary maybe not the right thing to do. So then I thought, what do I do? Do I just not take a salary? And then I thought, actually, what I prefer to do is with that salary, the net salary, is to put it into a cause. I went with the British Red Cross. I did I was thinking of PPE and the masks, and the testing, which is so important. But you know, from the conversation I've had, it's not really a question of funds and money. It's just logistical issues, etc. So in the end, I went with the British Red Cross, brilliant charity. I've worked with them before. They're focusing on those most vulnerable in society, the most marginalised, the over 70s, people with, you know, difficult socially isolated positions when they're old, homeless, refugees, people that haven't even got GPs, women's victims of domestic abuse, which will obviously be raised at present. So that's my decision. What other people do is up to them. So I donated a couple of months' worth of net salary.
Okay, and just finally, and this seems trivial with everything that, you know, this programme has been about for the last few weeks. The football season, I mean, you know, what happens? Do Liverpool... It's a very difficult situation, isn't it?
It's so difficult, Mark. What to do, what will they do? And obviously there'll be legalities involved in decision-making as well. The whole thing's so fluid. How long do we go on? I think in an ideal world, in some way, shape or form, I think we'd all like to see the season finished, except for those that don't like Liverpool, probably. But I think the fair thing would be to try, come what may, to finish it. You could, of course, then go straight into the next season because they wouldn't need a pre-season. But then there's pre-tournament. It's so complicated. In the bigger picture, it's not the most important thing in the world. No. But as we've discussed earlier, a lot of people's jobs are at stake with football, and not just the big stars. I wish I had an answer. I genuinely don't.
All right. Well, look, Gary, thanks very much for joining us.